Speaking about ancient Greece, most people imagine epic conflicts, legendary warriors, brilliant philosophers, and architecture so remarkable that it still inspires our world today. The images of Athens and Sparta are often the first to come to mind. Yet the Greek world was far more complex, was not a unified nation but a collection of city-states, each with its own form of government traditions and ambitions. Some cooperated while others fought bitterly, but together they created one of the most influential civilizations in history. The period we know as Classical Greece spanned the 5th and 4th centuries BC. Much of what we know comes from Athens. Since the Athenians left us a rich legacy of plays, histories, and philosophical works, but while Athens gives us many voices, it was only one player in a much larger story that included rivalries, alliances, and wars that shaped the destiny of Greece. Above all, two names dominate this tale: Athens and Sparta, one of the greatest challenges facing the Greek city-states came from outside their own borders. To the east, the Persian Empire had expanded across vast lands, swallowing kingdoms from Bactria to Babylon and even Egypt. Their armies were vast and powerful, their ambition endless. When Persia turned its eyes on Greece, the scattered cities had little choice but to put aside their rivalries and stand together against a common enemy. The conflict began with the Ionian Revolt around 500 BC. This rebellion against Persian rule set in motion a series of invasions. The Persians first attempted to conquer mainland Greece in 492 BC, and again in 490, but were turned back. Their second great campaign came in 481 BC, when Xerxes led an enormous army across into Greece. It was during this invasion that the famous stand at Thermopylae took place. King Leonidas of Sparta, with just 300 Spartans and a few thousand allies, resisted for 3 days against overwhelming numbers. Though they were eventually overrun, their courage became immortal and demonstrated the Spartan way of life, which demanded loyalty, discipline, and sacrifice. Above all, ultimately, the Greeks defeated Persia in a series of battles at sea and on land. For a time, Athens emerged as the leader of the Delian League, an alliance that turned into an Athenian empire. This brought them into direct conflict with Sparta, whose entire society revolved around military discipline. The rivalry exploded into the Peloponnesian War beginning in 431 BC after decades of fighting. Athens was finally defeated in 404 BC, leaving Sparta the dominant power in Greece. Sparta, however, was not well suited to rule. Their narrow outlook and rigid warrior culture gave them unmatched soldiers, but little skill in diplomacy or governance. Soon their power was challenged. Former allies such as Corinth and Thebes turned against them in the Corinthian War, although this ended without clear victory. It weakened Sparta's hold on Greece. A deeper problem also emerged. As Athens and Sparta fought themselves to exhaustion, Thebes quietly rose in strength, waiting for its chance. Sparta. Society had always been harsh. From birth, Spartan boys were judged for their strength and health. Weak infants were abandoned, while those who survived began military training at age 7. They lived in barracks, trained constantly, and were expected to show no fear in battle. This produced the most formidable warriors of Greece, but it also meant Sparta's citizen body was small and shrinking. Every casualty was a heavy blow. Inferior classes of people who failed to meet the Spartan standards were treated with contempt. The system that gave Sparta its might also carried within it the seeds of decline after. Athens fell in 404. Sparta often acted with arrogance and opportunism. They broke treaties when it suited them, and their popularity dwindled. Thebes eventually rose in open revolt, reorganizing its army and freeing towns under Spartan control. In 371 BC, Theban general Epaminondas shattered the Spartan army at the Battle of Leuctra. Sparta lost hundreds of its precious citizen soldiers, and with them the aura of invincibility that had once made opponents tremble at their very approach. Defeat at Leuctra permanently shifted the balance of power in Greece. For centuries, the Spartans had stood as the model of military might, yet now they were humbled. Their rigid system could not replace the men they lost. Other states no longer feared them, and the myth of Spartan invincibility was broken forever. This collapse showed clearly how closely social organization and military strength were tied. The very system that had made Sparta great left it unable to adapt when times changed. Though Sparta never fully recovered, it remained a regional power for centuries. In time, they even allied with Rome, and under Roman rule, Sparta became a free city known more for its heritage than for its military strength. Roman elites visited it almost as a living museum, a reminder of a legendary warrior culture of the past. But by the end of the 4th century AD, Sparta was a shadow of its former self, and in 396 AD, was sacked by the invading Visigoths. The story of Sparta is both inspiring and tragic. It demonstrates the heights of discipline and courage that a society can achieve, but also the dangers of rigidity and the inability to adapt. From the heroism of Thermopylae to the downfall at Leuctra, Sparta remains one of history's most fascinating examples of the rise and fall of a warrior state. The legacy of ancient Greece as a whole, however, endures not only through Sparta's legend, but also through Athens' philosophy, art, architecture, and the enduring influence of Greek thought on the world. Yet to fully understand why Sparta fell, we must look deeper into its internal contradictions. The Spartan system was designed to produce perfect warriors, but in doing so, it sacrificed flexibility, creativity, and the ability to innovate. While Athens produced philosophers, dramatists, and historians who reshaped the human mind, Sparta discouraged questioning and individuality. This created strength on the battlefield, but weakness everywhere else. Faced with challenges that required imagination or diplomacy, Sparta had little to offer. Their society was a fortress, but a fragile one. Another weakness lay in their dependence on Helots, the large enslaved population that worked the land so that Spartan warriors could dedicate themselves entirely to training and war. The Helots often outnumbered the Spartans many times over, and their resentment simmered constantly. Sparta lived in fear of uprisings, and had to devote enormous effort to keeping the Helots under control. This meant that even while Sparta fought foreign wars, it was never fully secure at home. In times of crisis, this was a dangerous burden. Meanwhile, the Greek world was changing. Thebes experimented with new military tactics, such as the Sacred Band, a unit of 300 elite warriors fighting side by side in pairs. Athens, while weakened by its earlier defeats, revived its influence through culture, trade, and alliances. Other states sought new opportunities, and by the time of Philip II of Macedon, the entire political landscape was shifting. Sparta did not adapt, and so it remained increasingly isolated. In a way, Sparta's greatest strength, its devotion to tradition, became its downfall. It clung to the same military system that had once made it unbeatable, but warfare evolved around it. Alexander the Great spread Greek culture across Asia. Sparta was no longer central to the story. Its warriors were remembered more for what they had once been than for what they were in that moment. Yet even in decline, their legend inspired generations. Roman writers praised their discipline, Renaissance thinkers admired their austerity, and even today the phrase Spartan evokes ideas of toughness, sacrifice, and endurance. Fall of Sparta is not just a tale of defeat, it is a timeless lesson. Power based only on arms cannot last without adaptability. Society that devotes everything to war risks winning great battles but losing the future. The Spartans left behind not a lasting empire, but a powerful memory, a reminder of how fragile even the mightiest warriors can be when the world around them changes faster than they can adjust.